Welcome back to 6 Degrees of Associations. I am the podcast producer here at 6 Degrees of Associations, presented by Core Adventures. And my name is Casey Callanan. I am so honored to be joined today in studio by one of my longtime colleagues in an associations professional that I really, really highly respect. I personally went out and stalked, might not be the right word, but I found her.
I'm honored.
I really wanted to make sure that we had her voice on this podcast. Kathy Shanley, she is the CEO of Statice, thinkstatice.com, and she's a longtime colleague of mine at the American Urological Association here in suburban Maryland. Kathy, tell us about yourself and how you got involved in the association world.
Yeah, so I am so honored to be here. I often joke that association people are my people, no matter what I've done in my life. You guys are my people. And so a little bit about myself. So I was 30 years in the association space, and I recently retired and started my coaching business, which used to be my side hustle, and now it's my full-time passion. How did I get started?
Yeah.
I was working in New York City for an advertising agency with 100 social science journals running their production and publications, and left New York City, wanted to start a family, headed down to Bethesda, Maryland, moved there, and I applied for a job at the American Institute of Ultrasound and Medicine in their publications department. Awesome. Walked in, and one of the great things about associations is that there are so many opportunities. Walked in, I think at a lower level position, and within 3 months, I was their director of publications. And the rest is history. I just have stayed there for 30 years. Love it.
Was it an intentional decision once you got into the association space that you were like, this is what I want to do with my career?
I think it wasn't so much that as the aspect of look at all the opportunities in associations, because some associations are huge and some associations are smaller. And within that, there's chances to explore other areas. So for instance, I started out in publications, and when I retired, I was the executive vice president, public policy and advocacy. What happened in between were all the opportunities they gave me where I said, hey, I would love to create a government affairs department. It's what my doctorate is in. They were like, go for it. Put together a plan. And another aspect, I was running public relations in New York City, and I said, hey, you guys have a marketing team. How about letting me dabble in public relations? They said, sure.
Okay.
And so it was those opportunities to really create my job within the budget that really intrigued me about associations.
Got it. And now you work with Statice, which is a coaching and leadership consultancy, and I'm super excited about the work that you're doing there. Do you work with associations as part of it?
I do. And so I initially started out, I think it was around 2018, working with ASAE's career coaching program.
Okay.
I applied to be one of their coaches, and I've been one since then. And then, as I said, I was in the association world, and probably about 2-3 years before I left, I was doing that side job of coaching people within the association world. And a lot of it had to do with what their career plans were, or maybe a goal that they had that they really weren't having a lot of movement on. Or I had leaders that just really wanted to level up their leadership skills.
Yeah, I think it's important that if you're seeking a coach and you're an association professional, that you work with someone that knows associations, because it is not apples to apples when you talk about other industries in the private sector. Am I onto something there?
Yeah, so funny you should say this. So just recently, I was presenting to a group of association professionals and then also a contractor that worked with associations. And the comment that came back is, she was relatable. She gets it. She's been here. And so I tap into that experience with my coaching abilities, and then also my 30 years of having been in the C-suite and been through what you've been through, whether it's an issue that has to do with members or just rising up in the association world or working with stakeholders.
In the decades that you were an association professional, how did it change? Did it change for the better? Did it stay the same? I want to know about some of the evolution or lack thereof that you saw in the association world.
Yeah, so I would say what I've seen over 30 years is no different than what the rest of the world has seen in the business world, and that's the change in the relationships and the hierarchical structures and what teams need from their leaders today. Okay. So back when, I think it's fair to say that we saw a lot of top-down, and I think what I'm seeing now is that the strong need for interpersonal relationships that team members want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and they want to know they're cared about.
Okay.
And so that would be one of the biggest changes I've seen.
I want to ask a little bit about your opinion on the post-pandemic world of associations. I know that just working in associations, a lot of them ditched their, for lack of a better term, they ditched their physical office space.
Yeah.
And that maybe that serendipity is lost when you don't have a colleague that you see face-to-face every day and you're working from home.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how this real immediate change in just the physical workspaces of association has impacted the success of association?
Yeah, and so don't get me wrong, I'm all for work-life balance. I'm all for having the time to not spend it in a car and be at home. At the same time, what I'm seeing is that lack of interpersonal relationship, that seeing somebody sitting across from them, having a cup of coffee, running into them in the hallway, has actually caused some challenges for associations. What do those things give you when you see people every day, when you start to know about their family? Like, I know who you married. I know who your child is. I know that people knew I was a Red Sox fan. I knew you were a Cubs fan, and we would have these relationships, right? It builds a level of trust. And why is that trust important? Because when things go south, you know you had the best of intentions. Things just went south. Things happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's important. Obviously, you're a big proponent of building trust in the workplace. I know that about you. How can associations who have decided, hey, the decision's done, we're going fully remote, and that's the way it is. We're going to save that cost that goes into our overhead and having an office space. How do associations that have decided to go remote continue to build trust?
Yeah, so find a level to connect, right? So trust is built on a lot of things. One of them is care. Another one is sincerity. Another one is reliability. And of course, there's competency. And so how do we actually come together as a team to decide what this next best version of this team is, this remote team? How do we want to show up for each other? How do we want to connect?
Okay. And what are your thoughts on going virtual for meetings in terms of maybe annual meetings or maybe just board meetings that used to take place in, I don't know, Hawaii or tropical parts of Florida or whatever? What are your thoughts on those going remote? Is there something lost there?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. So follow the lead of your membership. What are their needs? What do they need? And oftentimes, and I mean oftentimes, it's not just about the education. I think you and I know that because we belong to our own professional associations.
That's right.
And so it's, do I want to go there and network? Do I learn better in an environment when I'm surrounded by other people? If I'm remote, what do I lose? And there may be benefits to remote. In fact, people that can't travel or people that are in other countries that couldn't get here, it's a benefit for them. But at the end of the day, what do our members need? And then that'll drive the delivery, I think.
Now, tell us about what drives your passion. What's your why? I know you, Kathy, you don't have to be doing this. You could be relaxing somewhere in a very warm part of the country. And you could just, have done whatever you want to do with your time. And that is a position that you've earned.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious what your why is. Why do you wake up every day and, come to work and want to do this stuff?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. When I was retiring from the American Neurological Association, there were plaques, there were, dinner. The thing that really struck me was I was given a book by the team and by former leaders and people I worked with, people that weren't even on the team anymore. And it was called Lessons Learned from Kathy.
Oh, no.
And that became my passion. It was I have 30 years of experience in the association world. I've been in the C-suite and I've been in challenging situations just like everyone else is in. So what lessons can I share? And then where can I support teams? Because that's what I heard loud and clear is it wasn't so much what I did, it was how I made people feel. Mm-hmm. And so I've just continued that through my writing and through my coaching.
One thing I want to ask you about is we know that a lot of associations tend to be very hierarchical.
Yeah.
It's a chain of command kind of environment at a lot of associations. One thing that I really appreciated when working with you, you were in the C-suite and I was, I was at the associate level and you were always very felt peer-to-peer. I never felt like the chain of command was there or that it was lurking in the background of any of our conversations. You did a great job of making people feel comfortable as an executive, as a leader. Talk to people about who are in the C-suite or who are in leadership or management, and how can they do a better job of relating to their employees, because I honestly believe that's how you can get the best out of them.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that compliment. And I got to say, that goes way back to my first job working for my mother in the restaurant business.
There you go.
My mother used to say to me, because you're the boss's daughter, you have a higher standard, and I'm starting you out as a busgirl. And then I moved on up in that restaurant, and she said would lead by example. And she said, I will lead by example. I'm expecting you to lead by example. And so here I am in the leadership position. And so what I would say to people is what I mentioned before, is it's so important today that the workforce now wants to feel cared about. They want to know that you actually have an interest in them and that you're willing to listen. And so as leaders, just reach out to people as people.
Yes.
And find out what inspires them. I knew what inspired people. I knew that you were a Cubs fan. And so I would talk to you about the Cubs. I still have the baseball you gave me from the Red Sox.
Yeah.
But there were other things. I knew that people might have someone at home that wasn't feeling well, and just checking in with them. I mean, authentically checking in with them and showing concern. Like, hey, I know you got someone at home right now that's not feeling well. What can we do? How, what's your scheduling needs? How are you doing?
I think it's like going that extra mile to learn about them as a person.
Yeah.
Even, hey, no one's going to judge you if you have to take formal notes to know about the personal parts of your employees or the people that you work with.
Yeah.
Because I do think it goes a long way. Maybe not everyone's going to be receptive to it, so you do have to make adjustments as you go along. But any other thoughts on how relationships can be built in the association world or in any professional endeavor?
Yeah, again, really, it's all about, building engagement.
Sure.
And then once you build engagement, then people feel we're in it together.
There you go.
And then I think that's how you get the best of people.
Kathy Shanley joining us today on 6 Degrees of Associations. Do you want to tell us about any mistakes that you've made as a professional and what we can
Yeah, so I would say early on in my career, Casey, I was really data driven. I used to joke that I was an analyst because the first 4 letters were ANAL, highly data driven. So if you came to me and you said 100%, like 80% of the membership is for issue A, then issue A should happen. Or only 2% believe this issue is important. I'd be like, why are we dealing with it? Yeah. And so I was very lucky to have a leader early on. It was at the American Institute of Ultrasound and Medicine, who said to me, Kathy, the association world is a little bit different. Sometimes we are the only voice for that opinion, or only voice to push that idea forward. Yeah. And so the 2% can be just as important as the 80%. And so I learned pretty early on that it's a nuancing of opinions in the association run. And at the end of the day, we provide recommendations to association leadership, and they make the decision.
Now, interesting, you seem to have mentioned that there was a mentor there in that story. Is that true? And if so, tell me about what advice do you have for people seeking out a mentor as a professional? Should it be someone that's in their organization, or it should be someone else? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this person actually was one of our physician leaders that was mentoring me, and I've had a couple of really good mentors over my life that were like, you should go to medical school, or you should get a PhD, which I did, as you know.
Sure.
But I think at the end of the day, I found that most of my mentors came from outside of the association world. They came through the foundations of my first jobs. And then later, I actually hired a coach to help mentor me on my goals to transition successfully out of the association world into my retirement phase, which is my coaching business.
Sure. And that business, of course, is Statice. And you can learn more at thinkstatice.com. We always like to wrap up our episodes. Of course, this is 6 Degrees of Associations. So is there someone that is in your network that you think would be a good guest and could get us some really good some good content?
Yeah. So, Jennifer Regala over at the American Neurological Association,
Okay.
I think you know her.
I know her well.
I'm fantastic at connecting people, so I think she'd be fantastic.
Okay, we will make a note to reach out to Jennifer and stay tuned to 6 Degrees of Associations for more great episodes. Kathy, thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome.